Yo, what's good, everybody? Happy Tuesday, happy pizza day. Man, another exciting time. Congrats to the Taproot Wizards for raising $30 million, man. It seems like, dude, it seems like Runes in the ordinal ecosystem was horrifically down about a week ago. And then all of a sudden,
it was all over. It was dead, literally dead.
Completely changed. We went from Runes on Solana to now completely degenning Runes on ICP to Arch Network to pizza to $30 million raises to new tokens. Man, we talk about this all the time, just how on a dime shit changes. How are we feeling today, Adam? Got your orange OCM hat on.
Got my hat on, feeling the ordinals today. Always good to chat with Trevor. Trevor, how's it going, man? Good to see you, bro.
Yo, good to be here, guys. Thanks so much for inviting me. Yeah, appreciate you guys. And yeah, guys, obviously this space goes through cycles. Solana is sucking out a lot of liquidity, the broader space, and just we're low in liquidity. So you in these environments, you can see big differences, even though it's in the grand scheme of things, like there's just not that much liquidity, but like you can see stark differences because of that. And I think we're entering into an exciting year with, Arthur Hayes kind of predicted the dip in Bitcoin. He said we were going to go down to 70K. Didn't quite happen. Looks like we're still going good. But then he also predicted we're going to be at 250K by the end of the year. So I think it's a bullish year ahead. And yeah, what's happening right now is not going to be, where we'll probably be in a couple months.
How do you look at this cycle different? This feels different to me, the liquidity movements like this cycle. It feels far more kind of, I don't know, extractive, I guess you'd say, right? So like in the past, okay, Bitcoin would run or ETH would run, that money would flow into NFTs. Obviously we'd have liquidity pulled out there, but we'd have this seems like different in that the meme coins, like Trump is the easy example. It's like $500 million got sucked out by like 3 people, right? And it's like, it just feels different. The liquidity flow out of the crypto space. What's your take on it as someone with experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I don't think this cycle is going to be like 2021 because we don't have these like stimulus checks. I mean, maybe that's going to change. Maybe Trump is going to, close. Him and Elon are going to close the IRS. I don't know. I get messages from all my friends with hopium every day about that. Though I think world peace is more likely than the IRS being shut down. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. I think that ultimately we're in a high interest rate environment still, and so that just means liquidity is going to be low, but that can't last for that long. The fiat system is just very incentivized to inflate the currency to, lower interest rates. And I think that alone is going to dramatically impact the move towards crypto and the liquidity in crypto. But bigger would be, real use cases would be, if you're talking about NFTs, like, Bored Apes dropping Other Side and actually being a great game that people want to play and makes it to the top of the list. Then people being like, oh wow, actually there's merit in NFTs. What else? What else is out there? Or some other success stories, whether it be, Doodles launching, their animation being successful, Azuki doing something with anime. I mean, really, it's about breaking through to real use cases, I think, this cycle. And I think that, it has the potential to happen. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the streaming services, Amazon, Netflix, see a big advantage to a project like Pudgy Penguins having a million followers on their Instagram before they produce an animation, or same deal for Pizza Ninja is what we're working towards. I just think that there's a lot of merit in this technology, and that the real use cases haven't really come to fruition yet. But when they do, I think it'll be a much bigger lift than, and especially long term, probably than a bunch of 2K COVID stimulus checks going out to everybody.
Yeah, you got to see that as quite drastic changes. Attention has been diverted over to Solana. It seems like Zoomers have really taken over that chain. It's kind of interesting. I call it kind of the attention cycle, whereas last cycle was a little bit more of the utility cycle. But focusing on the Bitcoin ecosystem, we're essentially 2 years into ordinals and 1 year into Pizza Ninjas. Looking back to when ordinals first started 2 years ago, do you think that we would have been where we are today with 5 collections sitting, around $100 million market cap? Still has some issues in terms of adoption, but the legitimacy has been essentially ordained to ordinals as, one of the premier kind of NFT standards across all of these different chains.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've made it halfway. I thought we would. I'm always an optimistic person by nature. Otherwise, it would be hard for me to do business in this industry. You have to be a bit irrationally optimistic to be a founder, and to be a VC as well. And so, I think we have a lot of things to be proud of in ordinals, but there's still a lot of opportunity. And I think that people over optimize for this this idea of like narratives moving the market or attention. I think it's really the fundamentals that start and then the narratives follow. So when it comes to ordinals, like it wouldn't be successful, and there wouldn't have been a narrative around it unless we had the fundamentals, like being fully on chain. If it weren't for ERC 721, NFTs on Ethereum to have all their data on IPFS, which has a risk of not being around, then ordinals wouldn't have any narrative to it. And so I think people might, if you try to focus on narratives or screaming louder than the next person or trying to get attention, you're just going to end up at a dead end. But if you focus on the technology and on the people actually building, then the narratives will follow. Because I think we're in a tricky place with ordinals and runes where people have heard our narratives. Like, it's been 2 years for ordinals. It's been almost a year for runes. The runes narrative kind of boils down to just having the assets on Bitcoin L1, which obviously people in this ecosystem think is the best place to originate the assets, and that if you have something that's worth billions, tens of billions of dollars as market cap, that you can really trade that anywhere, as we've seen with Odin. You could trade runes on Solana if you wanted to. The security assumptions of a bridge to Solana wouldn't be as good as we have with Odin and ICP, or with Stacks, or with any of the other Bitcoin L2s that are actually building, first class bridges as part of their protocol design. But it's the asset origination that matters. And I think people have heard that narrative, and until they see something fundamentally change, like we're seeing with Odin, and sort of an actual live and great UX behind moving to an L2 and trading things, and until the macro improves where the liquidity is actually available to take advantage of that, that's when things are going to change. And I think, we're at the precipice of multiple potential catalysts for runes. I mean, things can really change overnight in this ecosystem. I think Solana has found a really addictive game with Pump Fun, but people have to remember that the odds of that game are not great. I mean, it's definitely better than the lottery, but the vast majority of people are losing money on Pump Fun, not making money, and it's an insider's game. It's people have really advanced bots, sniping bots, and things that just make it so that it's not something that the casual player or even an advanced player without resources to use these types of automations is going to succeed at. So, long term, I think the meme coins in Solana is like you mentioned, more extractive. I mean, Pump Fun as well has generated 500 million in fees, which they have cashed out, of Sol. They're only taking 1% fees, so I mean that's fine. But the majority of the meme coins do not create any fundamental value. Yes, they can go to large market caps, but then they drop and liquidity moves somewhere else. Whereas new use cases, things that actually are disruptive in the nature of the technology, actually grow the pie itself. So meme coins have the ability to move capital around back and forth at rapid pace, and you can kind of catch one of those waves. But ultimately, that's what it's doing. It's just moving liquidity from one place to another. And maybe that's fine as, more liquidity comes in. It might just sort of soak up more liquidity through that game. But it's not going to grow the market cap of the entire industry, which some of the new technologies that are coming out on Bitcoin and what other, long-term builders are working on actually grow the pie, where it turns $1 into $2. Pump Fund in the meme coin meta turns $1 into 99 cents over and over again, if not, $1 to 95 cents over and over and over again. And that's just how it works. And so I would rather put my time and place my bets in a place that, or a type of asset that has the potential to grow, turn $1 to $2 over and over again.
Well, what do you think? I mean, myself, I just speak for myself. I actually feel like Pump.Fun just highlights a use case for crypto, which obviously go back to Eric making, Satoshi dice. It's the perfect use case for crypto, is this as a gambling mechanism, which is something you couldn't, I can't just spin up a gambling website right now. First of all, I'd probably go to jail. Second of all, you'd have to trust me to run it, right? Well, Pump.Fun is just highlighting this, natively thing that crypto does better. So you don't feel like that just grows the pie natively? Like if crypto took over all gaming on Earth, you don't think that would grow the pie massively for crypto?
I don't think so, because I think that Pump Fund is not a good mechanism for launching utility-based coins. I could be wrong, but I just think that, like, if I was going to launch a utility-based coin, or let's say I'm going to want to digitize my stock and move over to crypto, again, like, it's not a great distribution mechanism. Like, people are going to, if you're anyone of notable following, or you have any type of existing business, it's just going to get sniped right away if you try to launch it there by these bots and other things. There are tons of bots that just follow Twitter handles until a contract address is there, and people have preloaded buys for these. And this is mercenary capital. This is not long-term capital. Like, when I think about distributing a token, like, you think about what Pudgy Penguins did, how they did theirs. What you want to do is you want to identify ahead of time the most valuable users, and that's generally an existing community, or it's how somehow you're segmenting the market based on people's usage patterns, and you want to distribute in that fashion. I think Pump Fund is just like the most addicting gambling game, but I don't think gambling can grow the economy around it. Like, you go to Vegas, and there's a lot of great entertainment, great restaurants, this kind of a thing, but it's not going to increase the GDP of the United States. You know what I mean? Las Vegas is not going to increase like global GDP, but Silicon Valley is. Silicon Valley is increasing the GDP of the United States by massive, orders of magnitude, or not, maybe not orders of magnitude, but you get my idea. Like, the productivity increases from what's created in Silicon Valley is very different from what's created in Las Vegas. And I think that we can have pump fund on Bitcoin, like we've seen with Odin, or maybe potentially other platforms. Like we're going that direction. I think the things that stand out for me with pump fund is like the live streaming thing was really crazy, where you see some guy smoking crack with a hooker to pump his coin, and then rugging, and this just like is things that people can talk about. But again, this is it's like not even Vegas. It's like the back alley of Vegas where all the crackheads are. And then, what we want to, where I want to spend my time is in Silicon Valley, not in, Vegas.
Hey, I do have to say though, as a born and raised Vegas native, Chris and I, who are both on the stream, we grew the GDP by getting the entire United States addicted to sports betting. And I don't know if you've seen the growth of that industry over the past 5 years. So maybe even some of the Vegas properties are translating to crypto, which therefore it grows the overall GDP. So I do have to have a little bit of a pushback from the Vegas perspective, but it is interesting to see, the growth and proliferation of these different type of mechanisms. I made this joke like months ago or last year that Pump Fund live streaming was just a tokenized chat roulette. I don't know if you remember chat roulette back in the day, but it's really kind of the same idea. So people are starting to take kind of these old concepts and then turn it into a tokenized version. You did something similar with Pizza Pets, where you're moving into this kind of Tamagotchi type world. So one of my leading questions as we dive into this topic is, what about that old traditional style game, kind of, enamored you to build this in a unique way on Bitcoin? And then were there any other types of games or mechanisms outside of crypto that you've, I guess, built into the game that maybe you were inspired by that some other people who are not playing, or even some of the players, may not realize?
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. I mean, I think it was just a lot of my ideas start from the question of like what's cool, like what's the coolest thing to build, and that you can build within like the functionality of the platform. And then I kind of work backwards to the business case. And I think that in finding product market fit, you have to do this kind of juggling act, or sort of Sudoku type of puzzle, where you have limited resources, you have limited options, and you have to figure out, you look at what ingredients are in the kitchen, and you make the best meal you can. And I think just the ordinals, parent-child structure, recursive endpoints made most sense for a Tamagotchi game. It's just very simple. It's fun. The pet itself is an asset, and that asset there can be variability in how valuable that asset is based on how you play the game. When you add a breeding aspect into it, and there's a closed loop of the game. So a lot of the problems with any type of token or asset is that there is the difference between like a Ponzi and a sustainable model, like is whether the loop goes full circle. And with Pizza Pets, the loop goes full circle in the fact that you raise these pets in order to breed them, in order to raise them, to breed more of them, and so on and so forth. And at the same time, new people can come into the game. People are incentivized to promote the game if they're a breeder, because otherwise then they won't have any people to sell them to. It requires Bitcoin fees to raise the pets. So it's not like something that you can do. It's kind of like a proof of work element to it, where you have to put in resources to benefit. And breeders are not going to be able to long term afford only raising their own pets. They're going to have to onboard new people and sell them those pets that they're raising. So like the model itself just comes full circle. And I think that's really rare, because there's so many examples of models, like probably 9 out of 100, that can't do that. And that's why so many tokens go to zero, because there isn't a closed loop for it. And some of the tokens out there, utility tokens, are hampered by regulations, which hopefully we'll see removed this year. You can think of Uniswap. You can think of any platform that should be generating fees and should be sending you those fees because you're staking the token, but none of them have a fee switch at this point, which is kind of like a dividend for a company because you know, a lot of companies actually don't issue dividends; they just reinvest. So you know, I think that like long term, you know, there will be a few meme coins that are successful. I think of, but like there's a limited number of meme coins that can be successful. There's an unlimited number of utility coins that can be successful if they actually have a unique use case. And that's why we see, you know, the majority of the top 100, the vast majority of the top 100 coins are not meme coins. There's a few that are up there, and they can go from 0 to 100 overnight. But like long term, if you're taking a diversification approach, a portfolio approach, I think the gains are a lot stronger if you're allocating, you know, to a bunch of different utility-based projects that actually make sense. But then the drawback is for retail users, a lot of them aren't sophisticated enough to analyze this, and so they actually probably the odds of meme coins for a retail user might be, you know, just as good as betting on a utility project where the team is promising you a bunch of bullshit.
So diving into then utility, which it's been a hot topic, and I think a week or two ago, the Trump administration gave 180 days to, you know, this body of individuals across these different industries to give them basically guidance or to build essentially a general framework on what these crypto regulations mean. Do you think then that this brings the pendulum back towards utility and this becomes kind of this larger focus and kind of this, I guess, the evolution of tokenomics or ICO? I see a lot of different claims towards ICO 2.0. I've been saying we're going to have this new wave of tokenomics 2.0. And then how does the Pizza Ninjas ecosystem tend to leverage, you know, this new type of clarity if when that does come?
Yeah, great questions. I mean, I think generally in a bull run, utility projects do better, right? Like we saw in the last bull run, Bored Ape, you know, surpassed CryptoPunks. And just in the bull run, utility is more compelling because I think these projects can raise money. These projects can sort of up their tier or up their, you know, the level at which they operate. Whereas in the bear market, you know, it's the building takes longer, you know, and things are going to change a lot more slowly with utility projects in the bear market. And so they're just not going to do as well. And the projects that have been able to become a meme or have been able to win on provenance are going to do better because there's, you know, that's what people are buying them for, and they're not expected to do anything, so they're going to perform well. But in a bull run, you know, things can change and things can change, can surpass other things, and they can potentially surpass them, you know, in a way that they maintain that as well. So I think that this the user behavior in the bull market is different. Also, the customer base is different in the bull run. It's a lot of people who are, you know, coming in for the first time, who maybe are not even a part of like the Web3 native, you know, culture, right? And so the people who are part of the culture have different sort of needs and wants. People that are going to stick through the bear market than the retail user coming in who wants to see something that can break over to the Web2 masses. And so I think this is like kind of how the things go in cycles. In terms of the regulatory clarity, I mean, I think it's going to become, it's not something that we are, you know, planning, but it's something that we're thinking about because yes, there's big advantages to taking calculated risks to run ahead of the regulation. I mean, Uber is a great example of a company that sort of ran ahead of regulation and was able to build $1 billion business because of it. And so those are calculated risks that teams can take. It's not something that we have any plan for at this time. And probably if we did, I don't know if we would say it, but you know, it's something that I think all good founders should be thinking about right now is keeping an eye on this and, you know, being willing to take calculated risks ahead of the regulation if there's a benefit to it in terms of it can take you from being, you know, in the top 30 to the top 10 or from the, you know, bottom of the top 10 to number one, right? So this is how I think about it.
One question I've had, actually, I've had this for a while, been meaning to talk to you about it, is you've done such a nice job of keeping Pizza Ninjas relevant, and price wise, especially, which is almost like, it almost feels like to me almost impossible. You almost have an impossible task to try and keep number up on a collection, but you've done an amazing job kind of navigating that. What has been like your like North Star, like way you think about it from a founder's perspective to keep people engaged, not bummed out when price falls, because it is so difficult to kind of navigate that. What's been your kind of like the way you think of it and the way you try to keep the community kind of positively motivated? What's your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, man, it's a great question. I mean, one of the hardest things you can choose to do in your life that will add the most stress to your life is like launching an NFT project. And it looks easy or it looks like simple, but like I know lots and lots of smart people who failed at it. And it's not because they're not smart, it's because it requires you to be cut from a certain cloth, so to speak. Like you have to be willing to engage all the time, to be present, to be able to take criticism. And this is a lot of pressure. And honestly, it definitely affects my health in different ways. But try to look at the positive, which is that, this is like, the most intense form of training, or this is like an opportunity to rise to to an occasion. Like pressure makes diamonds, so to speak. And so there's a lot of things that it comes down to, but everyone has to find their own strategy. For me, my strategy is that I've sort of come to through maybe trial and error and soul searching, self-awareness, has been customer service. It's like, how can I just offer holder service is what I call it. How can I just offer the best service to my holders? And I try to envision Pizza Ninjas, the club, the membership, the community, as like a 6-star hotel. Like how can we go give the best level of support to our holders? And so that means, with my personality, like I'm very much just myself. I'm not, I'm not good at pretending to be somebody else. I'm very like comfortable, to a fault, being myself around people. And so, that strength lies in being able to be humble and being able to, believe that the holder is always right. That's the American motto is the customer is always right. And I think too many NFT projects treat themselves like a nightclub, where it's like, the founder isn't accessible. They try to, make you wait in line unnecessarily. Like if you've been to a lot of nightclubs, a lot of times there's a long line outside, but there's nobody inside the club, and that that's part of the game. And then the upsells in like the nightclubs are crazy, where they have a nightclub within a nightclub. And I just feel this approach. Maybe some people can pull it off, and but it's not something I can pull off or desire to pull off. And I think it's kind of like, and it's hard for a nightclub to expand to multiple locations in a city. You have one nightclub, and then you need to thrive on exclusivity. But in a 6-star hotel, you can have that 6-star hotel, very easily in, one city, and it can be in the city right next door. It can be all around the world, and it's something you can operationalize. Like the whole nightclub aspect, it like relies on sort of either like, I don't know if you call it like black hat marketing, or like these sort of like design anti-patterns, where you're like, it's like you use an app and they trick you to click a button, to give you their email address, or these sort of like dark patterns that are more based on manipulation and that kind of a thing. Whereas a 6-star hotel is very easy to measure. It's very easy to operationalize. It's very easy to train people. And, it just comes down to how deep can you go in the details, and how much do you care? And are you willing to, give people as much value as possible, and find ways to do so in a scalable way, an economic way. And like I think that it's something that is an easier game to play, and a lot of people, maybe a lot of founders aren't doing it, and I don't think they're doing it well. And so finding that strategy, was something that took some like kind of searching, but I think that's like the opportunity that we're trying to exploit. And so like, some ways that we're doing that, for example, like we create a custom bot in the Discord when any member joins, it gives them a big welcome. It comes down to being on Twitter Spaces multiple times per week for myself. It comes down to following all of the community members and, being a reply guy for them, liking them, reposting them. This kind of stuff is anybody can do it, but it takes that sort of constant effort. And I think I kind of covered most of it there.
So would you consider Pizza Ninjas an IP company, a gaming company? Is it an entertainment company? Are you forming, a new classification? Just going on this for a second, Bored Apes kind of took the PFP genre and then started doing these other things like creating a gaming world. They attempted to create or maybe start creating a nightclub in Miami, and they've tried all these different things. And still the majority of people look at Apes as a PFP company, whereas with Pizza Ninjas, I don't think most people really consider it a PFP. It's more of just like an ordinals kind of project in general. So looking through to 2025, as the Bitcoin ecosystem grows, where is the trajectory or maybe even the categorization of Pizza Ninjas?
Yeah, great question. So I definitely view ourselves as an IP company, but I think that gaming is like probably the best form of IP. So, I look at the case study of Pokemon, for example, and they became big because of a multimedia strategy. Like if, in the early 90s when it launched, and I, was got the game right away. They had the game and they had the animation and they had the playing card game that came out around the same time. And it was kind of the perfect storm. It was an awesome game. It was an awesome concept. People loved the characters. I loved just like the whole idea of it as a kid. And I think that type of multimedia approach is the best strategy for an IP. But I think gaming is a core part of it. And if you look at the, Pokemon's like major revenue drivers, actually merchandise is the first one. That's the hardest to do because it involves physical and you need to have a lot of logistics and operations behind that. But that and that part also wouldn't even be successful for Pokemon if they didn't have an awesome game, animation, etc. So for us, like the core part we're focusing on is gaming and animation. And so those are the two things that we're focused on this year is the Pizza Pets game and then also like the different animations that we're doing. And I think when it comes down to it, if you look at, again, Pokemon, like the three most biggest revenue drivers for that IP is first, the merchandise, second, it is gaming, and third, it is, the card game, the collectibles. All three of these industries are being disrupted by this technology. So all merch, all toys, all this kind of stuff is going phygital. Like it'll be in the future where you're not just going to buy a toy. The toy is going to have NFC chip in it. It's going to be connected to an NFT that's going to verify the authenticity of it. There's going to be gamification you can add to the digital aspect of it with these toys, and they can go hybrid physical digital. When it comes to gaming is obviously being disrupted by this technology. It doesn't make any sense to have these walled gardens of an ecosystem. Like you should be able to trade your gaming items outside of the game itself and have a secondary market for it, which allows players to monetize. It allows players. It makes players become promoters of the game in a bigger way. And then, of course, collectibles, right? So the trading card game, for example, for Pokemon. The biggest thing is the mobile app that they have for the trading card game right now. The Pokemon TCG is super successful. It was number one in the App Store for, it might be it's number one right now, but since launch. And PFPs, being the ultimate digital collectible because it becomes a part of people's identities. So I think, there's a massive opportunity. Pokemon is $100 billion IP, and there's, hundreds of multiple billion-dollar IPs. All of these are going to be disrupted by this technology, and it's opportunities like this where there's a new medium created, which is NFTs, a new medium for storytelling engagement, where new IPs are created. You know, if you look back into the 80s, 90s, when the first video game home consoles came out, many billion-dollar IPs were the early IPs and games in that phase. You know, Zelda, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Pokemon, another example, Mario. And so, you know, there's going to be probably 100, you know, multi-billion-dollar IPs created in this wave of the last cycle plus this cycle, leveraging NFTs as a medium and disrupting IP through, you know, digital merch, gaming, and you know, PFPs as collectibles.
When I think about it, as you were speaking there, I'm thinking of first guy that popped into my head is Gary V, right, with V Friends and what he did, and I got to feel like it's successful because I see him all the time on my timeline. You know, he does lives where they're cracking packs and they're selling packs, and it's like become a physical company. I mean, more than anything, it seems like to me, where they're selling a ton of these packs. I think the one thing that he didn't hit on though was the PFP aspect. You know, he went with these characters which can become comics, and he's done comics and that sort of thing as well. I don't know how successfully, but I don't see anybody rocking a V Friend as a PFP, or very rarely, right? Like, how did you study what Gary was doing at all and look at that as like a strategy, or what's your thought, if you have any, on the way he kind of went at it?
Yeah, I think with Gary, you know, his core business is his agency, right? So where he makes all of his money is he has like the highest profile clients in the world, and he advises them on digital marketing. And so I think with Gary, you know, VFriends was a really cool effort, but it's not the core of the business that he's doing. And I think that, you know, it's hard to be successful, I think, if the new tech is not the core thing that you're doing. I mean, AI is maybe one of the few examples of like a tech that is both a disruptive innovation and a incremental or sustaining innovation, where it can, you know, you can just leverage AI to extend your existing business and do things better. But there's also, you know, Chat GPT, which disrupts Google in many ways. You know, I'm sure search queries are down tremendously because I rarely use Google anymore if I can find out for Chat GPT. But I think that NFTs are, you know, in some ways there's a sustaining innovation to it. Like, you know, some gaming companies may be able to plug it in to just make their gaming items tradable. You know, that could be a sustaining version of it. Or, you know, you can create a community membership for it. I think the problem is, if you're using it in a sustaining way, then it's less likely, and it gets super hyped, you know, it's less likely to maintain its value, right? But if you're using it in a disruptive way, and, you know, it's like the core tip of the spear of your business. Like, we can't make a business without an IP without you know, the Pizza Ninja PFPs, and without, you know, the Pizza Pets game. Now all the resources and attention are going into it, and when it's a core part of everything you do, I think the results are going to be very different. So,
What's up, Dogfather?
Yeah, I have to agree. Pizza Ninjas make way better PFPs. I may be biased, but I agree, Trevor. But man, how can you say that he's not focusing on Web3? I mean, look at the amazing art. Do you say that Pizza Ninjas are more elaborate than his doodles? Come on.
I love it, dude. I'd love to now dive a little bit into where the center of the focus is in the Bitcoin ecosystem, which is runes and this idea of, you know, just Bitcoin DeFi and kind of the larger vision. I'll kind of start here, which I've always found kind of interesting, is that the Bitcoin ecosystem tends to be filled with holders from all different levels. Like, Bitcoiners are known as laser eye diamond handers. You're going to hold this forever, probably not even sell it, maybe pass it down to your kid. You know, the rare Pepe community is considered long-term collectors. Even the ordinals communities come to like, hey, this is more of a collector's base than like a degen trader. But then when it comes to runes, somehow we just keep trying to pigeonhole this into being, a fast attention, quick flip, meme coin kind of ecosystem, even where a lot of people are trying to rebrand them as Bitcoin meme coins when the overall ecosystem or everything else is considered long-term holders. I would love to know, why do you think that the community is trying to pigeonhole this as a meme coin? Do you think there's any legitimacy there, or is there something larger, a larger catalyst or maybe tech improvement that needs to happen before people realize that runes are maybe something much larger than just meme coins, or maybe it is just something of a meme coin?
Yeah, I think that like there's like two ways to look at this. I think that one is that people definitely, I don't want to necessarily perfectly boil it down to like cargo culting, let's say, where it's like something is working someplace else and it's working for certain reasons, but you kind of copy and paste it and you skip the reasons why it's actually working. There's some of that here where it's like, the pump fund I think works because of the things that we mentioned, like the live streaming, the pace of trading, and this can definitely be all implemented by a platform like Odin or others. And there's some sort of drawbacks to being kind of late to the game, right? Like timing is everything. And so I definitely think that one of these platforms can probably find a different product market fit with the Ordinals ecosystem than specifically how exactly Pump Fund works. There's gonna be different mechanics. And so I think, yeah, like the idea of like just launching a random meme coin and kind of it pumping and then having alpha is probably going to take a lot more figuring out on Ordinals. It doesn't have that product market fit yet. There's definitely some initial, there's strong demand for it, but are we going to get people over from Solana, today? Probably not right away, right? I think that the collectible aspect of some of these meme coins is also very compelling. I think Dog fits into this category, and that's why it's been very successful because of the collectible aspect to it. I think, in some regard, the other top meme coins represent like they're more kind of a collectible. Like the difference between NFTs and meme coins in terms of collectibles is that they just have very different strategies, right? NFTs thrive more on scarcity. They thrive more on identity, but that scarcity can also be its limiting factor, where a meme coin has the ability to be a very, very large community of people. And also, they kind of complement each other well too. Like, meme coins compete in a different arena. People tend to buy both. But I think that, the Runes community, if we want to sort of really optimize how we're going to grow in the future, I do think it comes down to, having many different use cases. The more use cases, the better, right? So with Ordinals, it's like it can be, they can be, provenance-based collectibles. They can be utility projects. They can be games. There's a lot of use cases there. They can be one-of-one art. There's a lot of cool interactive art elements you can easily do. And with Runes, we have kind of like, again, like two categories. And I think when it comes to the fungible tokens, there's a limited number of projects that can be, the provenance play, the collectible play. I've always thought that like when people try to compare themselves to CryptoPunks, it's kind of a lost cause because there's only going to be one CryptoPunks. CryptoPunks is the first PFP on any chain, and it's debated. And like people say, this is going to be the CryptoPunks of this chain. Well, there's no guarantee that's even possible because sometimes, there can only be one of one thing, right? As a collectible. And so with Runes, I mean, there's a lot of other things we can do. We can do fractionalized art. That we had Gordon Berger on the show a couple 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about how you could he's burning the artwork, and then they're just saying that the tokens now represent the artwork. We can't do all of the fancy stuff with fractionalized art on Ordinals because you kind of need to be able to like have some type of DAO structure to be able to auction, etc. But there's some use cases that is not necessary for. So I think it's just about how can we if you can't grow horizontally, if you can't grow vertically, like just scaling a single use case bigger and bigger, and you're hitting a ceiling for that, you got to grow horizontally, where you introduce other use cases, and that can grow the overall pie and thereby grow the liquidity. So there's always two ways to grow with any fundamental technology. That's like scaling a single use case or introducing multiple new use cases. I think we've tried, pretty hard to scale the meme coin use case, and we've had a lot of reservations with it. There's also people doing a great job doing that with Odin.fun and other, L2 platforms. What I don't see people doing enough is trying to scale it horizontally through new use cases.
Yeah, I completely agree there. This is I personally and the Emblem team has been much more bullish on the utility side of runes than actually the meme coin side of things. And maybe I'll give a few different kind of reasons why. One of them is going to that original thesis that Bitcoin generally is filled with holders and long-term collectors more than it is flippers. And if you're a utility-based project, you want these people having conviction in the beliefs, and therefore, they're not cheating in and out every 10 seconds. Although that is great for liquidity, generally you want people who are actually using the product itself and using the token alongside whatever the utility or the use case is. And so those who have a long-term vision, the 10-minute block time is not something that's a bug. It's more of a feature, where when you're trading meme coins, that becomes a lot more of a bug than the feature itself. And for us as well, the interesting part, which teams are starting to explore now, is that you can take a rune and bridge it to these other chains, but you can't actually take a token from the other side and bridge it to Bitcoin. It just doesn't seem practical. So Bitcoin is much more of like an export type chain, where assets, whether they're fungible token or an NFT or whatever kind of standard comes next, are generally inscribed onto Bitcoin because it's going to be there forever. And then you could go plug it into all of these other different systems. So that itself provides a lot more utility than a lot of these other chains. And then, as you said in the very beginning, starting to explore, DeFi and whatever this new regulatory regime may bring to the ecosystem. I think that's where you'll see this massive unlock and maybe some sort of different direction to what these things can do. Obviously, like yield generation, premium different features, right? Further decentralizing different types of protocols and etc. I know you have inscribed the Pizza Ninja token or rune. I think it's in like the top 15, I believe, or top 20. As you've said that you're migrating towards or moving towards a gaming product, what type of utility do you think a rune can offer in a gaming ecosystem that's Bitcoin native?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that our thoughts are obviously not finalized on that, but I think what the approach for IP is to build an ecosystem, as you kind of alluded to, right? Like, so just like what and the whole value is this idea of decentralized IP, right? So when it comes to a blockchain network or a blockchain ecosystem, these tokens are usually used to incentivize developers. I mean, we see Blast tried to do this, and I think Abstract is probably doing a better job of this, but it's like ultimately you reach a critical mass. Like, the flywheel for these networks is not a core team, any core team building something, but the core team providing a framework in which people can build stuff, and then incentivizing hundreds of people to build stuff and trying to attract as many developers as possible. And the same can apply to IP. I mean, the IP is not necessarily even limited to a single IP, right? Like, one of the great things about IP is that IP collabs are so easy to do and so mutually beneficial. We see this with Fortnite having, the different Marvel characters as skins, or, different IPs as skins. We see even, fashion brands doing this with, like, Louis Vuitton and Supreme, or, any of these other collabs. We've seen Bored Apes do stuff with Adidas. Collabs are really great in IP. And I think you want the core mechanism for a token design for an IP is to design it in a model such that you can reward people who are contributing to the development of IP. So just like Abstract is rewarding developers for building products, we want to have a token that will reward people for making their own spin-off game, or Nintendo has had a history of like lawsuits against fan created games, but fan created games have been around for forever, right? And there's people that create art on Etsy all the time that they want to create, a bag with their own or Ninja Turtle on it or something like that, and all these IP, is usually a restrictive model. Shifting to a decentralized model and an incentivized model is really gonna shake up the whole space. And I think that that's the angle that we're looking at it from. I think it could be the token being a part of the Pizza Pets game, or maybe a separate token being a part of Pizza Pets game. But whatever we do, it has to be a model that can come full circle, and that isn't going to be a token that is distributed or is utilized in a way that doesn't return value or sustain the value growth of that token itself. So it's always a tricky thing to launch a token. I think that some people also like over engineer tokens. Sometimes like the simpler models are better, and I always tell people that are pitching us a token like, I want a maximum of if there's a flow chart there should be a flow chart with your token, and there should be like a maximum of 3 arrows, or sorry, maximum of 5 arrows. 2 to 3 arrows is like the ideal, like a simple model for it. But that's the general concept. I also don't know if people are ready for something like that. Ultimately, I do predict a future where when IP reaches more of a mass market, that just like you have sort of KOLs who farm like DeFi protocols, where it's like a DeFi protocol just wants users, just wants liquidity. They kind of don't care where it comes from, and they allow influencers to farm it by spreading the word about it and by helping the TVL grow, and that's a win-win situation. As Hollywood and the traditional entertainment industry continues to decline, we're going to see professional writers, professional animators, professionals in this industry who have great skills that don't have jobs, musicians as well, that they're going to be like, oh, great, here's a project called Pizza Ninjas. It's cool. I vibe with it. I can contribute, and they'll probably contribute not just to one project, probably to multiple. And now they have an income source by utilizing their skills. And I don't think that future is here quite yet, but I think that future is not far away.
It's just got to be a little bit patient, but I appreciate the explanation. Those trying different things in runes, it's the ecosystem is still maturing within itself, as we explained at the very beginning of the show. That just 2 weeks ago, the whole community was kind of self-imploding, and now within 2 weeks, there's new projects. There's $30 million raises, and we get to have these cool conversations of different types of builders who are trying to use runes in a different type of way to kind of expand our overall vision, but also the protocol. So I'd like to share that the Pizza Ninja community will actually be the second community to receive a Keys airdrop. First being Dog, because you guys shared the same vision for us, which is
let's fucking go.
Let's go. Which is really, utility-based ecosystems or holders, those who are trying to do different types of things. And as we've joined, as Emblem has gone on to go to runes, we're migrating from Ethereum to runes. So we're probably the only team I know that's leaving a $800 billion token ecosystem for a $1 billion ecosystem, because we do believe in the vision. But we're also aware that, runes still has some growth. And that's why with our Founder Vault collection, we time locked these runes to then open in Q3, because that's when we expected it to be mature, or at least you could kind of hope so. And so in Q3 and Q4 is when we'll be doing our TGE and then airdrops to all these different communities afterwards. So it gives the ecosystem some time to grow and we can have a direction. But the Pizza Ninja community will receive the airdrop. I'll pin something up to the top, or Adam, if you would like to, just kind of a basic idea. We have we took 38% of our total supply, and we're basically just airdropping it to different types of communities, different types of rewards, and different individuals and teams who shared these different types of ideals for building a Bitcoin and trying different types of utilities. So there'll be more information on that. There's a lot of things to allocate, and one of our goals really with this kind of larger distribution mechanism is to be one of the most held tokens. If you have this rune and utility of Emblem being, you know, a Bitcoin interoperability protocol, then it can be we could be quite successful, and you want that in the hands of those who share those ideals. So Trevor, yeah, appreciate you for coming on. Also building Pizza Ninjas and also having you know, similar vision of trying to do something different and unique.
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much. I'm honored for everyone who's listening. I didn't even know that this was going to happen today, and it's awesome. You know, I think Emblem is obviously a great company. You know, we're obviously investing also from BFF side in the future of it. And yeah, you guys, you know, Adam, Jake, and, you know, the whole team, you guys have been a huge net positive on ordinals, the space at large, and it's cool tech, it's useful tech, and I'm excited to see it happen. Thank you for honoring us with you know, supporting our community through this.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. So we'll have some more information on that, you know, probably sometime in Q2 over the summer. We'll have a little bit more direction in terms of, you know, where ordinals and runes are as well. So we're still growing, and we're fully committed into the ecosystem and going to continue to here in the next few weeks, or maybe by the end of this month, be able to start bridging your ordinals to base and to abstract, and a lot of these to stacks, into a lot of these other kind of L2 ecosystems who want to embrace that type of vision. So really, really exciting there. I would love to pass it over to Chris, who's with us on stage as well, an Emblem team member who may have a few other questions. And yeah, and then if anyone has any questions after that, or wants to come on stage, or is in the live stream and has questions, just go ahead and post them, and we can ask Trevor as well.
What's good? What's good? And love the Pizza Ninjas. Love that you guys are kind of just like the friendly face in the Bitcoin ecosystem, kind of the onboarders, some kind of the community that you can always go to for support, or just kind of like education, which you guys hold pretty near and dear to your hearts. So I think that that's super sick. I guess a good question from me would be, you know, we're doing the thing that Bitcoin's doing, the thing that it's always been kind of destined to do, which is take all of the best aspects from every other ecosystem and bring it home to Bitcoin. And so I think that we've done a decent job over the last year, especially, whether it be someone like Liquidium with financial services, something like Magic Eden, some sort of marketplace, maybe Odin, some sort of entertainment, and you're kind of establishing this kind of community, this kind of ecosystem, or almost like little town. Now, the question is, you know, where does the next set of users come from? You know, how do we differentiate ourselves from maybe something like Solana or Ethereum? Or where do you expect the next set of users to come from? Are they going to be users from outside of the ecosystem? Are we looking to just pull from different corners of the crypto ecosystem? Or where do you think the next set of users comes from now that we have all this kind of infrastructure in the beginning phases of being built out?
Yeah, I think that the low hanging fruit is like what I would call like latent users, or like more passive users, or inactive users. You know, it's always easier to like reactivate use existing users that have some balance of runes, have some balance of Bitcoin. You know, when the intention goes down, you know, they move to other chains, but then when new exciting things come along, they kind of come back. We're definitely not near the, you know, the level that we were a year ago at this time. So I think like kind of new tech and new catalysts can bring new users in. And, you know, it's not necessarily always about users. It's also about liquidity. So there's two sides of the same coin. I think that probably most of the new users are just going to come from, you know, retail users, new people coming in. And I think that Bitcoin assets just make a lot more sense probably to somebody who's new to the ecosystem. Bitcoin's always been the gateway drug. And I think that if you're presented with, you know, two options that are, you know, equally interesting to you, but one's on Bitcoin, one's on Ethereum, Solana, you're going to probably pick Bitcoin every time. And so I think that we're going to grow with the overall space and with the overall relevance of the technology and interest in it as it comes to macro and, other sort of events outside of our control, just the normal booms and busts of the cycle. And then I think, short-term liquidity is probably going to come from centralized exchanges. I mean, I would be like, the fact that we don't have runes on centralized exchanges is a massive limit in liquidity. And it kind of is a, what's the word? Like it's the missing piece of the puzzle, because, the way that this, the fundamental liquidity model works is that you have, new projects that create cool stuff. They launch a token. It could be a great community or collectible, or it could be a DeFi platform. And then, they get the, Web3 native liquidity, the Web3 native support, and then they go to the centralized exchanges, kind of like the lower risk, more passive users. And, they jump in, and liquidity, sort of recycles back with like the, people who do this full time, or who are addicted to this, or are very into this and more sophisticated, taking some profits and then recycling that back into the next new thing that, that is not ready for the retail type of users. And so we don't have that full cycle of that, for how liquidity is supposed to go full circle. This is something that's not limited to crypto either. It's like also how Silicon Valley works. You usually have like let's say like, the founders of Google, or even the founders of Apple, all these old school tech companies started as a startup. They go through the risk curve of growing and scaling. They have the early investors who take more risk and get a bigger reward. Then they go to the later stage investors who bring in more capital until they finally go an IPO. And then what you have is, all those early investors investing in the next startup, and you have all the early employees going and starting their own startups. And we just don't have this sort of like, final stage of the life cycle in runes. And I think it's could happen like literally any time. I think it's highly going to be driven by macro impact, or macro factors outside of our control. Like, Binance tends to list things that when they have liquidity on a macro level. If they see that their users are growing and that people are buying stuff, but there's not new stuff for them to buy in their analytics, then they're going to, onboard runes. And so that's going to happen at some point. I would be shocked if it didn't happen this year. Q1 of this year is totally in play. Q2, maybe, most probable, or whenever sort of like the bull run kicks off. But in the short term, that's going to be like the biggest effect on the overall Bitcoin market. It's one of the main benefits of the runes protocol itself, is that, that sort of model doesn't necessarily work for ordinals projects. And so runes are going to be the main way that big liquidity comes into space. And, that's going to happen soon. It's going to make a lot of people rich who have been able to diamond hand the right projects. It can't come soon enough.
Facts. And I'm glad that you said that. I was on Ordinals Revolution last week talking about it, and everyone's kind of like, what's the dislocation with runes and the Bitcoin ecosystem? And it's really that centralized exchange kind of access that every other ecosystem has had. Every other ecosystem had the chance to build out their on-chain experience after having liquidity, thanks to the centralized exchanges. And so a lot of people think that that's like a centralization failure, kind of leaning into the centralized exchanges, but really that's just how ecosystems develop. It's kind of like, having, training wheels until you go off into the on-chain universe in itself. So I think that that's super important. Another thing that I would just kind of ask from your perspective is maybe what do you think might be missing? You're investing in the Bitcoin space. You're seeing all the new businesses and startups and innovations happen. What do you think might be something that's being underdeveloped at the moment? What do you think is something that the ecosystem needs that you're not seeing out there in the open today?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think gaming is one, right? That's why we're kind of leaning heavily on it. I do think like IP is another. I mean, there actually are some great underappreciated IP projects in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and probably too many to name as well. And I think that yeah, I think that the maybe Ordinal's ecosystem tends to be like, we're a great ecosystem in the fact that I think a lot of these are super sophisticated, and we tend to call out scams faster. There tend to be a more principled approach in Ordinals, though, not totally different than other ecosystems. But I think, yeah, like just new use cases, like new things. It's like, if one thing doesn't work, try another. And I would love to see more people experiment with things. I think there's a lot of use cases that haven't been explored enough, or even tech that hasn't been explored enough. I mean, if you go over to Fractal, for example, all the opcodes for Bitcoin work on Fractal, and it if like, I would love to see more developers experimenting on there with the intent probably to build on Bitcoin L1, but just launching cool stuff there. I think that there's I'd love to see more L2 stuff. I mean, the L2s, I think, open up a big window of use cases, because you can just do anything on an L2, like literally. And what we saw with Odin specifically, I mean, Bob just nailed the UX. I mean, the UX is better than any ETH L2 I've had to migrate to. Whether it's going to Polygon, going to Base. I mean, it was way faster and easier to go over the ICP bridge and start doing stuff on Odin. And so I think that was a watershed moment for L2s. I would love to see, I know a lot of builders on different L2s. There's a lot of builders on stacks that I know. And I think that they just need to literally study everything that Bob did with the UX, and, make it feel like you're on Bitcoin L1, but things are super fast and approachable. And, people are going to become much more comfortable with it now that they've seen how Odin works, that they see what's possible. The potential, the number of ideas that I think that we're missing out on is always, bigger than I can remember or recall, because there's so many, and it really just comes down to a shortage of not ideas, but people willing to really go out there and hack together cool shit, and take an interest in the technical nuances of what could be done, and just try cool shit. Most stuff isn't going to work, but you try enough cool shit and things are going to stick, and they have the potential to be really big in scale.
Facts, man. Well, just appreciate everything that you guys are doing over there. Appreciate you guys being a light in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and really pushing for development and users, and our way of life forward. So hats off to you, man. Excited to see you keep on building and see ninjas continue to dominate the timeline.
Let's go. So we do have Fiat Fire, who's joined us on stage. Wanted to say hello and ask if you have any questions or comments on the conversation.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks a lot. Hi, Trevor. I've heard you talk a lot about in spaces over the years about this, or the year, about that hotel, 6-star hotel idea, or giving a lot of value, being very committed to the holders. And also, it's been very clear that that you guys, I can't think of another project that's participated more in conferences in Tokyo, just now Amsterdam, and all the Bitcoin conferences. And if you're saying, that you're doing that for the culture, that totally makes sense. And obviously, like, providing something that's great and good has a lot of benefits. But it seems like the holders already have, Pizza Ninjas. And I was just wondering, what is the sort of long-term vision of Pizza Ninjas? Like, what does Pizza Ninjas get out of it for everything that you guys are, putting out into the community, all of the good things that you're providing? And when I say Pizza Ninjas, I mean the company. I mean you guys. I mean you guys that developed it.
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, ultimately, it's a long-term play. You know what I mean? I mean, I think that the most powerful thing in business is to have diehard fans, like, by far. And this is the only technology which can facilitate having diehard fans even before you've even launched a product. You know what I mean? And I think that works great for for IP, obviously, because most of the, new cartoons, animations, games, etc., have to build a community from scratch, and it's really hard. And feedback is also like the lifeblood of any product, IP, etc. And so we have, the great fortune of being able to invest in our community, and our community, essentially, it's like turning $1 into two. I mean, I can tell you, for every event that we hold, the amount of volume that's generated is, far and away bigger than the cost of producing the event, right? But people know, I think, also that these events are not money makers for us. We do, have a very aggressive, like sort of penny pinching approach to doing all these events. All these events that we do, we try to get, we only do event if we have a good deal, if it's going to be a cost effective event, and if we do it with partners. And we also mostly do a lot of the events ourselves, because the when we put the work in ourselves, we're saving a ton on it, and it's more economical. So we do all these events at a very economical basis. We also bring in outside sponsors. So the ROI for us on investing in our community in this way is very high, or is at least, we're not losing money compared to probably other projects, because of just the way that we do it. And I also have had a background in events. The previous couple of businesses I did ago was a training company where we did events around the world. So something that I do excel at and have leveraged that for that. But ultimately, it's like any startup where, you raise capital and you're not profitable for a long time, but you are doing R&D, you're doing development to launch a product that will be scalable and make a lot of money. And the benefit of Web3 is that it's not just about investing in your holders, but also rewarding your holders. And so this technology not only has enables you to invest in your most diehard fans, and also to facilitate making people become diehard fans, but also rewarding them at the end. And I think that collaborative approach to, launching a game, launching an animation, launching in the future, digital merch, we're creating a business that I think looks very similar to what you would see with Pokemon, or any of the other, multi-billion-dollar IPs. And, we're not going to be, it's not going to be profitable, until we reach a massive scale, because we're reinvesting, everything that we raise, whether it be from doing a mint, whether it be from, bringing outside investors and that kind of a thing, is going back into the goal of building that massive thing that someday is going to, create a lot of value by being a brand that people love, by having games that people love, having animations that people love. And so, this year we're working very aggressively towards those steps, with Pizza Pets being the initial game. And then you've seen some of the animation we produced for Pizza Pets. There's going to be more animations produced around specific activations, but ultimately, we're working towards, creating a full-length TV series, a movie, that kind of a thing. Starting with having the whole universe sort of defined, and having that in a way that we can go to pitch partners, because ultimately it's like a partnership with like, a Netflix or an Amazon Prime for distribution would be like the moonshot for this year, and would be the ultimate end goal of where we want to go. We'll probably, our goal is actually to produce it ourselves, right? Like to produce an awesome animation ourselves, an awesome TV series ourselves, but then we need distribution. We need to plug into these other industry. Or, we could also, there's other options as well. Like you can go YouTube, you can go, Doodles has created their own streaming service. I think that's harder. Ideally for us is to go into the existing distribution infrastructure and have, millions of fans around the world, and millions of diehard fans at different levels, with like, the Pizza Ninjas themselves being the ultimate, collectible, the ultimate, rare collectible in this, multi-year attempt and multi-year effort to reach, millions of fans around the world. If not, a billion fans around the world would be pretty cool.
Yeah, man. congratulations on the last year. It just seems like from the beginning there was a lot of intentionality with the whole, you know, even like down to the color theory and the GitHub book. And you know, there's not a lot of projects in the space where you really see that kind of long-term vision, and you guys have executed on a lot of it. So yeah, just congratulations on the 1-year anniversary.
Facts.
Awesome.
Thank you, Fiat. And dude, you're one of those diehard fans, Dogfather as well, who's come up here, and probably like most people in the audience rocking the Pizza Ninjas. You guys are diehard fans, and we're in this together. And you know, I'm gonna work my ass off for all you guys, and all our team is gonna work our ass off for you guys, because you're putting in the you know, the love with us to create this.
Amazing. Well, Trev, I appreciate you for coming on and having this conversation. I think it'd been almost a year, maybe a little more, since last time we had you on. So, you know, congrats on 1 year. And for those who were late to the show or just tuning in, we did announce that Pizza Ninjas will be the second community receiving our Emblem Vault keys airdrop during the second half of 2025 during our TGE. It's rune number 5078. We etched it on the first day. So I've been planning for this for a long time, and we're very highly motivated by the growth of everything in the Bitcoin ecosystem and everything that Trevor has built. If you guys are new to this show, we host a show Tuesday through Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. If you could do us one favor, we'd love the Pizza Ninja community to follow the Emblem account, so you can stay up to date with everything that is in store. Also, we have on stage Agent Hustle, which is our AI project. So we haven't even covered that, but going to really enhance the Emblem UX experience. Also building an AI-based Bitcoin wallet. So for individuals like Butoshi, Cypher Genesis, going to be using the wallets to do some cool AI stuff with their AI agents. So bringing some cool stuff over to the Bitcoin ecosystem. Trev, I'd love to pass it over to you for any final things you'd like to say. If not, we'll wrap it up here and move on with our Tuesday.
Yeah, no, thanks again, guys, for having me. Always a pleasure. Anytime you guys hit me up, you know, I always I'll always join. We'll always figure out time to do. Emblem Vault is awesome. You guys have been, you know, you guys have been in the trenches with everybody else here, and you guys have been loyal to the cause of really creating value. And love you guys. Thank you for having me. Love all the Pizza Ninjas in the audience, everybody that stuck around. And yeah, looking forward to more.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be a crazy and wild year. Appreciate everyone who joined us. Have a fantastic Tuesday. We'll be back here tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, stay safe, enjoy the trenches, and talk soon.
Thanks, guys.